I mean, we're just, as a city of Kelowna, we're just extremely grateful for the opportunity of Mr. Hansen to come to our community. Not only to share and inspire us with all of his experiences and accomplishments in the past, but also to speak to us about the next kind of goal to reach and how important it is for municipalities. So I'm going to let Mr. Hansen and Mr. Clark speak with respect to that, but there's a lot of positive messaging and a lot of positive conversation that we've had so far today, and I will pass it over if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Appreciate it. It's all great to be back to Kelowna and, of course, the Okanagan region, and to be reconnected with my dear friend Paul Clark. And Paul and I go way back in our Paralympic days. And as a matter of fact, when I was doing my Man in Motion World Tour, I identified that the tour and the dream was more important than the individual. And I asked 4 people to help me conclude the tour if for some reason I wasn't able to complete, and Paul was going to be one of those people. And it's so awesome to see him move forward in his career, and also to pay it forward by being an advocate, champion for accessibility. And coming back to the city, it's great to be able to see how far we've come over those 40 years and celebrate some successes. And I know, Paul, you've got some things to say about how important this moment is here with this amazing work on the park here.
Yeah. The parks in Kelowna are absolutely amazing. What Kelowna has done is very, very good for accessibility, and the new Parkinson Rec Centre that is being created is going to be 100% accessible, all part of the information that we get through the accessibility committee. So these things don't have to be more expensive. They aren't more expensive if they're designed that way from the beginning. And I can live in a small space, I can operate in a small space as long as it's made to be accessible. And maintenance of that accessibility is also very important. So it's just getting the message through, and having accreditation from a certification like the Rick Hansen Gold certification certainly would help us move forward.
Well, we're super excited as a foundation because for 40 years we haven't stopped. We've constantly been able to set the bar higher by setting new solutions that become movements, and we tackled the built environment as one of our big priorities, the places and spaces that people live, work, learn, and play. And we knew that we had to actually create a training curriculum so that whether it be people in public service, social service, or private sector, that they could all learn the same thing. They can all be accredited, speak the same language, and measure the same things, and then be able to manifest that so that it isn't all on Paul's shoulders or his worship's shoulders. It's all of us working together. And by being able to get thousands and thousands of people on the same page executing solutions, it gives us an incredible advantage, and it accelerates progress. The second thing that's important is to be able to measure where we're at. And so when you build a new building, if you get the planning stage completely done properly and rated to a gold level of accessibility beyond the minimum, then you know that when it goes into construction, when the concrete's poured, it's going to be done cheaper, and it's going to be consistent to what you actually agreed to, and it'll be a celebration on the back end, not a complaint. And it won't burden up human rights lawsuits, conflict, further taxing with having to retrofit brand new buildings over another 5 or 10 years. So this is a new way of doing business, and our foundation is really honored to be able to offer that support. And we're just thrilled that champions in the community have advocated for it and used it, and of course municipalities have actually been able to endorse it and saying this is good news here for this project, but also wouldn't it be great it was a policy for every project, and that Kelowna was working with every other municipality in the country to measure up and to share and to innovate and to go beyond the minimum.
Well, Mr. Hansen, if I could just ask, so is this the launch of what your foundation is doing, or you've been doing this for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been doing this for a long time, and this is now the scale up.
Okay.
And it's also taking time to come and say congratulations to people who have adopted the project and are putting it into action, and being able to put things to a point where the new facility that will be built will be at that gold level, and citizens here can be confident that it's going to be an outstanding event and an outstanding product.
And just for my clarification, either the mayor or Mr. Hansen, the PRC, the new PRC, is the aim is for have it to meet that standard of your foundation?
Correct.
Okay.
And just for clarification, Paul, if you will, I'll let you take it, but I know he was working hard with regards to it, but it does, and Paul mentioned it does meet that standard. That was part of the development process that they went through, and as Paul had mentioned, there overall, it did not change our budget line.
And that's the exciting part about it, because that means in the planning stages, people get together and make good decisions that are not only good for accessibility and inclusion, but they're actually financially responsible and sustainable.
That gold standard, what does that look like? What does that mean?
You can imagine that if you had a measurement from 0 to 100, when you rated the meaningful accessibility of any building, a minimum code would probably get you somewhere around 50 to 60 out of 100. Gold is 80 and above. And so what it means is that they're actually looking at all aspects of the building and how it's being used by people with disabilities. So not only can you get in the building and say go to the washroom, but you can actually be a spectator, and you can be an employee, or you can actually be a performer, and you can be someone in the media box, and that means it's being thought of in an inclusive way, so the building is being used by everybody, and it's a different step forward from what it was back in in the early 80s when I was doing my journey, because the priority then was just to get in the door. Now we're talking about getting in and actually being able to contribute and fully participate, and this is a very exciting next level threshold.
And Mr. Clark, I just want to get from you your thoughts on with the PRC. What does this mean for the community, for people that are in wheelchairs, that have disabilities? What does that mean for them?
Yeah, great question. When Rick and I were disabled in 1973, same year, there was very minimal adaptations, and I don't see a lot of change yet, but those changes are coming. So I don't want 50 years to go by again without this gold standard being adopted and creating more accessible housing and more accessible locations.
And how encouraging is it to see this?
This is very encouraging, because you know what? I mean, everybody's getting older. Anybody can have a stroke or a disability tomorrow. And so those facilities are made to be used by everybody. It doesn't matter if you're disabled now, you might be, or later. Those facilities will be made proper for you.
And the nice thing about the solutions is they're not just for people in wheelchairs. There's visible and not so visible disabilities, and it's meant for people with visual, hearing, mobility, and neurodiversity. So it's really taking into consideration the breadth of the community and then forging solutions that work for everyone.
I have a question for the mayor. So this focusing on the Parkinson Rec, the new rec center. Can you talk about other projects that might be ongoing or in discussion to make accessibility better at other venues around Kelowna?
Well, we were having this discussion just up in my office, and I was also asking a similar type of question. Where is this at in its placement with regards to future developments, and understanding what the province brought in the last few years, and now what, as a municipality, we have adopted, and the report was taken to council. Knowing that it became part of Parkinson Recreation Centre, that we were able to look at building it into that design, and that there was no cost increase. I know when we advance the other parts of our Building Stronger Kelowna, getting into the Mission, getting into Rutland, getting into Glenmore, and then also Lions Park and those areas, this will also be a consideration in all those future developments, and what they look like moving forward, so they are accessible for all members of our community. And Mr. Hansen was speaking about, which I thought was a very interesting comment when we were upstairs, about the advancement of individuals needing this form of housing, and I believe you're saying it's about 30% or something. Maybe just sharing, if you can, that element of it.
Yeah, if you think about the population in Canada, there's 8 million Canadians living with a disability today, and with aging boomers, that's growing exponentially. And so when we think about one of the greatest needs in our society right now is in a massive need for housing, and yet affordable housing without accessibility is inconceivable. It doesn't make any sense. And for us not to be able to build a whole range of housing solutions that are either accessible now or easily adaptable, then what we're doing is we're building in barriers unconsciously and taxing Canadians billions of dollars in the future and tying up time and having to fix it when it should be fixed now in the planning phase by using an accredited standard that actually works for everybody.
I wonder, Mr. Hansen, Mr. Clark, if I could get you to both answer this question, and that is, what's your vision? You talk about more accessibility for city facilities, municipal facilities, housing. What is the vision for each of you in that regard?
I'll let Paul answer that first for
Well,
perspective.
sure. It would be nice if more accessible locations were available for rent or for living. And if these places are made to be accessible in an entire tower, like the one you see behind me here, then we could rent any one of them. And rather than providing one or two units that are accessible, why not have the entire building that is able to be made accessible for the person that moves into that unit? I mean, that makes total sense. And same with the whole community. So why should I, as a disabled person, be slotted into only 12 spots at Prospera Place for seating as a wheelchair when there's 6,000 other spots?
From my perspective, it's absolutely critical that Canada starts to measure up. We have to be able to use the same language, measure the same products, and report back to Canadians that we're far beyond the minimum when we actually value disability. But we also need to train thousands and thousands of people to use the same product and have the toolkit to do it, and then certify so that we can incent the heck out of people who are going beyond the minimum and share the stories of innovation and community collaboration, and turn the tap off on all new buildings so that all new buildings are built accessible for all.
Mr. Hansen, we know you've been around the world. How would you rate Kelowna in terms of accessibility?
See, that's a fabulous question. And one day, when His Worship and the community actually uses our tool to measure the city and rate it from a scorecard of 0 to 100, he'll be able to come back to me and to say proudly that we are 75 out of 100. We're in the top 10 percentile of communities across the country, but we're not stopping here because we're always driving towards 100. And that's the kind of reality we want to be able to do is if you can't measure it, why then even start to even address, because the answers are not credible, right? So all I can say is right now is Kelowna is one of the fastest growing communities in Canada. It's making tremendous progress from where I come from 20, 30, and even 40 years ago, celebrating the success, but my challenge is let's get there faster. Let's not stop now.
And Mr. Hansen, are you taking this vision and your message to other municipalities?
Yes, I just had a chance to talk to the regional district of the Okanagan, and I've talked to Federation of Canadian Municipalities, big city mayors, premiers across the country, Prime Minister, and it's time for us to create a common standard on accessibility in the built environment and make sure that we start measuring up and turn the tap off.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.